If you sign to a major label and you take an advance, that advance is most likely going to be the only time you get paid. A lot of A&Rs have the ability to know, that's a hit, but they don't necessarily know how to get there.
Would you still recommend someone in that position to sign with a major?
Think of a record label as a magnifying glass for what you're already doing.
Was there ever a moment where you questioned your decision?
It was the right thing to do at the time. Amy Winehouse, Adele, Paolo Nutini, that was the kind of reach that I wanted. My label, just before I started the album, said it would be cheaper for them to let me finish the album and put it out than it would be for them to drop me. I had about 3 months worth of rent money and I was going deaf. I've got otosclerosis, which is the same thing that Beethoven had. I basically lost maybe 60% of my hearing. So I'm singing out of tune, can't tell where I'm at. And I'm supposed to be recording an album. It's unbelievable how on your own you actually are. I've always kind of been too afraid to speak out about that.
Hey guys, before we get into this episode, I just want to say the more subscribers we get, the better the guests are. People come on, the bigger our channel is. So if you want more conversations like this on how people did it, subscribe now. It would really help a lot. Enjoy the episode. Guys, welcome to the Ground Floor Podcast, the podcast where we are successful people exactly how they did it. Our guest this week is a very special one. We have Zak Abel, an international table tennis professional who dropped that life to become an internationally acclaimed singer-songwriter. He's worked with the likes of Saweetie, Gorgon City, Kygo, and his new track with Alan Walker, Endless Summer, is currently the #1 sound on the whole of TikTok. So more important than any of that, he's also one of my best friends. Zak, it's great to have you here.
It's great to be here.
No, thanks for being here.
So this has been such a long time in the making.
Yeah, I've been putting it off for so long.
I knew you were a diva, obviously, so I was like, let's kind of get that in the diary as soon as we can. All right, so dude, obviously I know like a lot of the stuff about your story because I've known you, but for people that don't know, start from the beginning. So you were a table tennis pro. You played for England.
I did, yeah. From 9 to 15, that was my thing. I thought that's what I was going to do for the rest of my life. I was ranked #1 in England for my age group.
Wait, wow. Hang on. You were the #1 table tennis player in the whole of the country.
I was the #1 table tennis player in the whole of the country for my age group.
Yeah.
I reckon I was probably at my peak top 10 in the country.
Wow.
For any human being.
At such a young age as well.
That's
crazy.
not bad. I played after school, so you're not bad. But
yeah.
Okay, so you dropped table tennis.
I did.
Why did you stop?
So I moved to France to play kind of professionally for a French team when I was about 15. I did my exams a year early so I could take a gap year when I was 15. Moved to France and I was training maybe 6 hours a day, 5 hours a day, 6 days a week, something like that. And it was really, really difficult. And I kind of saw the lifestyle of what it would take to be a professional. I was also training with professionals and seeing their lifestyle and realizing it doesn't really get much better than what I was experiencing then. And also at the same time, I'd completely fallen in love with music. I started writing songs when I was about 14 and I was out in France on my own, and whenever I'd come back to London, I'd always record YouTube videos just for fun. And those YouTube videos got noticed by someone who knew someone in the music industry, and then that someone was a manager. And that happened a few times. So a few managers got in touch with me and said, I'd like to manage you, and we think you've got something.
Is that common, out of interest? As a way to sort of enter that industry? Because I don't know much about the music industry, so I'm just curious to know if that's a typical way in, for example.
I think back then YouTube was the way.
Yeah.
Now it's probably more like TikTok or Instagram. Yeah. But yeah, YouTube was the one back then.
That's what happened to Justin Bieber, isn't it, as well?
Yeah.
He put a video on YouTube and then...
Yeah. I'd say anyone with the birthday that Justin Bieber has, which is March the 1st, is destined for greatness.
It's a bold statement.
When's your birthday, Zak?
Yeah, I'm just curious.
March the 1st.
Yeah, funny that.
Yeah, funny
Wait, you and Justin Bieber have the same birthday?
We do, yeah.
That's crazy. Okay.
But yeah, so I started working with these managers, and they put me in some co-writing sessions, and then I found that it had been sent to someone at Atlantic Records, and then they wanted to sign me. I'd actually stopped table tennis before this, but as soon as I got approached by managers, that's when I realized, I think actually I want to do this more. And I was just writing songs in my spare time, all the time.
Just kind of kind of to bring that down, managers reaching out to you, how did that feel?
Amazing. I think it's just massive validation, to say that someone who actually knows about the music industry thinks you're good and is down to spend their time working with you. Like, that's a huge bit of validation right there. And yeah, I think it coincided with me being so motivated to start music and see where that led.
So then they bring a record deal to the table.
That was when I was 17. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's like every kid's dream, I'm sure.
Yeah.
How? Just please go into that, because that's insane.
I was just like, I've made it. I have made it.
Completed it.
I've done it. Yeah, completed. Yeah. Which obviously is so far from the truth, but like, yeah, it was an amazing opportunity, and it led to me being able to have a career in music, and having a record label that was investing in me and allowing me to develop and work with people, find my sound. I think thinking back on it, I was probably one of the last artists on a major record label to be allowed that period to develop and find themselves. I think right now things are a lot more competitive, and you need to already have a following. You need to already have music out there and hype around you, and I certainly didn't. I think I'd written about 3 songs, and the only people who were really into me were people who went to the Archer's Wine Bar. But
your number one fan right here.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that was an amazing opportunity, and I think it was exactly what I needed at the time.
And when you get signed, what do you get in return for that record deal? How's it sort of structured?
So normally when you sign a major record deal, you have an advance. So they give you some money so that you don't have to get a job while you're working on your album. And then a typical split will be 80% to them and 20% to you.
Oh, wow.
And that's pretty much standard in every major label deal.
That's so much higher than I would have thought. Okay.
Yeah, but then at the same time, they are taking a massive risk on you.
That's true.
Because, you don't have any evidence to suggest that without them, you would make it. I think the more success you have prior to signing with a major, maybe the more favorable terms you can get. And normally they'll be either structured per single, so you'd get an advance per single, or it's per album. So for me, it was per album, and it was the right thing to do at the time, because I was able to work with producers who I'd never heard of, would have never come into contact with had I not been working with Atlantic Records and the A&R, especially a guy called Joe Barb, who put me in contact with some incredible people, like Joker, like Tom Misch, Karma Kid, Kate Trinada, Stuart Zender. Yeah, just lots and lots of amazing, talented people. And those are the ones that I did work with. And actually the music came out. There are so many amazingly talented people who I also worked with, but the music didn't come out. And that was, it was an amazing opportunity.
To someone who's maybe in the same position you were in back then, let's say there's a kid who's got, same kind of thing, 17, 18 years old, been scouted, and they've got a record deal on the table. With everything that's happening now, with people being discovered on TikTok and everything else, would you still recommend someone in that position to sign with a major?
I think if you really need the money right there and then so you can focus on what you're doing, it might be worth it. Someone always said to me, think of a record label as a magnifying glass for what you're already doing. They can accentuate what you're already doing, but don't rely on them to do the thing for you, because they won't do it.
Hey guys, sorry to interrupt. If you're enjoying the episode so far, please consider hitting the like button. It really helps us out when it comes to growth, and it will tell YouTube that we should make more content like this. What was the first song that you ever recorded?
The first song I ever recorded was a song called Haze that I wrote when I was 14. And I wrote it because I was in a bit of a crossroads between staying at a school called UCS, which is where we actually know each other from, I was on a full bursary to go there, and it's a great school. And the other choice was to pursue table tennis and either go to a school in Sheffield, which was near the National Table Tennis Centre, or go to a school in Harefield where my coach was. Both of those, the education wasn't as good as UCS, but I was not allowed to go and compete in tournaments as much as I would have liked if I was at UCS. So they kind of gave me an ultimatum where they were like, if you want to pursue table tennis, you can't really be at this school. Obviously, we'd love you to stay, but you have to make a decision. And at 14, that was a really big weight on my shoulders. And so I wrote about the feeling that I was experiencing, which was this haze, this mental haze. I remember feeling really depressed and anxious in that moment, and my response to that was to disassociate. And so I felt this like haze in my mind because I couldn't make a decision. And writing about that experience was so cathartic and so useful because, that I guess that was just my release, and people liked the song. And then I would get the validation from other people where it's like, this thing that I was going through is actually entertaining for other people and they're impressed by it. And I was like, wow, that's really interesting. Wait, so I can talk about my feelings and express myself, which feels good to me, but then also other people, some people especially who don't even know me, will listen to the song and they like it and they can relate to the lyrics, and I quite like this. Let's see where this goes. And so then I started writing more songs. And
so Haze was the first song you wrote.
Mm-hmm.
Did you record it?
Yeah.
How old were you when you recorded it?
14.
And is that out there? Can people listen to that?
No. I need to.
Would you put that out?
Definitely.
I would want to hear that, and
Yeah.
I feel like your fans would want to hear that too.
Yeah. I wonder if I can even still find it. I recorded it on a Tascam analog thing at home, with me layering all the instruments with no metronome either. Okay. So it's all out of time. Wow. But just
that would be a cool little gem.
I'd like to find that. Yeah.
Yeah, you should.
It would be. Yeah, it would be.
So okay, you signed the deal.
Signed the deal.
You're now signed to a record label.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, take us through that journey. So day one, so you're like, you have the meeting, you pop the champagne or whatever.
Yep.
And everyone's like, oh my God, my life's going to change forever.
Yep.
Wake up the next day. So day one of now being signed to a record label, what happens? What's that process?
They put me in the studio, allowed me to record a load of demos, and that was great. And I was convinced that I was, the greatest songwriter of all time, the greatest singer of all time, and just wanted to do things my way. And then slowly but surely I was kind of convinced that actually my songs could be better if I opened myself up to collaboration and worked with other songwriters and producers, and that was a difficult process, because I think when you start anything, you get confidence and you think you're good, and you need that confidence, and it's almost arrogance to think that, I'm doing something which is worth other people's attention. Like every time you step on stage, subtly you have to be thinking, what I'm doing is good. Or like imagine if you went on stage being like, I'm not sure I'm any good, and I'm not sure if I'm worthy of these people's time.
And there's 50,000 people staring at you.
Yeah, like it's not gonna be very good. They're gonna feel that. Yeah. So you need to have that arrogance to say, what I'm doing is worth your attention. Yeah. And I think I had loads of that when I first started. Too much of that. Yeah. I wasn't interested in anyone's opinion.
But to be fair to that, I feel like if you're 17 years old and you get signed to Atlantic Records, I mean, I don't know. I don't know anyone.
It would go to a lot of people's heads.
Okay, dude, if I was signed to Atlantic Records at 17, I'd walk in a room like I'm fucking
You'd be
John.
Unbearable.
You'd actually
be unbearable.
Yeah, you would be, yeah.
If you got signed to Atlantic Records at 17, get out, everyone. Yeah. Yeah.
Dude, I wouldn't even walk in rooms. I'd be kicking door rooms open, So fair enough. It's good to be like, you're quite self-reflective.
Yeah.
In general, but I think that's quite a self-reflective thing to say.
Yeah.
To be like, I did think I was the shit.
I did. And then slowly but surely I realised my songs could be better. Yeah. And so I started on this journey of working with other people and trying to learn what I could from them and trying to get my songs better. And also I had this idea of what, you know, the production should be like, but absolutely no idea how to do it, like, and you know what that sounds like and what the process is there. So I also had to open my mind up to, you know, what the production could be, and a lot of those things were quite counterintuitive. So my inspirations at the time were like Adele, Paolo Nutini, Maverick Sabre, and yet the label were like, yeah, you could do that, but why don't we instead put you with this guy called Joker, who is like a dubstep producer? And I was like, all right, yeah, let's try it. And so I started working with this guy who's from Bristol. So I like went to Bristol and just, yeah, we made like 4 tunes on an EP together of all different genres, and it was amazing because it opened my eyes to, okay, like I can do a garage tune, I can do an R&B tune, I can do like I suppose like a dubstep sound production in some of my music, and that was really key to open my mind to, okay, you can do songs in different directions, and it's more interesting when you do something which doesn't quite make sense.
Was there any sort of conflict being signed to a major label with them kind of pushing you to maybe be more of a pop artist? Because I feel like that's probably, you know, you get a young, good looking guy with a good voice, you know, you can see you on like a teen boy band kind of magazine cover. Was there any pressure to be like, let's make him like the new Bieber, the new One Direction?
Not at the start, no. In fact, it was the opposite.
Right.
So they were like, we want you to work with the guys who've done like James Blake stuff with James, or we want you to do the absolute opposite of that, especially at the start. For them, to their credit, it was more about doing something which was credible and interesting, and I'm really grateful for that, because, you know, I was able to work with like Tom Misch, for example, Kate Trinada, which, you know, are probably 2 of the most difficult people to get in the studio with. If some pop kid wanted to work with them, they'd just be like, nah, no chance. So actually me doing the first EP with Joker was genius, because it set me up in a world where not many people can inhabit. Where I felt the pressure was after that. So this was when I was maybe 19, 20. I felt this pressure from the label where they're like, you know what, if you want to be Tom Misch, that's cool, but you can't really do that here at Atlantic Records. That, like, their business model doesn't really cater for that. It's either Tom Misch or Bruno Mars. Like we're like a Bruno Mars kind of setup. So going back to your thing originally of like, if you were advising someone, you know, would you want to sign to a major? Depends what kind of music you want to make. If you're someone like Tom Misch, who mixes his own stuff, produces his own stuff, and does exactly what he wants to do, doesn't make any sense. Because you need that creative control, and you want to do it your way. So for me, I was like, okay, what do I want? And that's when I felt this pressure to think about what kind of artist I actually wanted to be. And the truth was, and still is, I want to just connect with human beings and do it in the most open way possible. Like I'm not really concerned with being cool. I don't care about, you know, impressing people in that way. For me, I just want to connect with human beings regardless of what kind of music you listen to. For me, I'm always going to make stuff that's soulful because I just love soul music. But other than that, it's just about, you know, connecting with people all around the world. And so that was kind of where I went from there. I'm like, okay, well, in order to do that, how can the music sound like something which a lot of people are down to hear and are willing to accept it in that way? And so I had to rethink songwriting and study like pop music and be like, okay, why is it that these melodies human beings seem to gravitate towards and these ones they don't? Why is it that these ones have 200 million streams, like these songs have 200 million, and these ones only have 200,000? And so yeah, I studied songs. I'd play them on piano. I'd learn when it comes to a melody, is it the third or the fifth in the scale? What about the syncopation? How they're mixing it up in the song? What about the lyric? You know, is it a broad lyric or is it very, very specific?
It's funny because you can hear that, especially in your newer sound. You really can hear. You do have like a dancey element on some songs, but you have really. It doesn't feel like a pop song. It feels like it's got soul to it. It's got character to it, which is really interesting because I think I've always felt that when I listen to it, but then hearing you say it, I'm like, of course that makes sense. It's got a kind of dancey, more mainstream, I guess, element, but it doesn't feel like a mainstream song. It feels like it's raw and it's like genuine.
That's right. Why do you say dancey?
I think dancey because of, well, I think not all music, but I mean in terms of songs like Dance With You, songs that kind of have a more 4x4 rhythm underneath them.
Okay.
They kind of make you more inclined to move. Like Woman, I have that. Like, it's not a dance tune. I don't see it as a dance tune, but like it makes me want to just, it's got a good groove to it.
Yeah, I feel you. That's more of a production thing though. What I'm talking about is just the bare bones of the song. So like if you were to strip it back to piano and vocals, what is the, like if you were to see it written out, I can't read music, but if you were to write out just that bit, what would it look like? And it's crazy when you study pop songs, like the similarities that they all have. For some reason, human beings love thirds and fifths or firsts in a chord. They don't really gravitate towards sevenths, ninths, and elevenths as much. I love sevenths, ninths, and elevenths because I love soul and jazz and funk music, right? Where that's way more common.
How much does that play into your writing now? Like when you're writing a song, how much of it do you think these chords might get more listeners, but these chords are more in the vein of what I'm feeling?
I think it's just that it's a lot more conscious now. Like because I understand it more, I'm able to make the decision. I understand what I'm doing. Like there's a tune on my album called Love Over Fear, and there's a bit in the pre-chorus. It's like, when I feel like I'm in a war and my world isn't safe anymore. That's like a super jazzy note. I know it is. And I know probably, you know, someone who's not into jazzy stuff, who just listens to the charts, they're not really going to be into that. But I want it. That's what I want the note to be. So it's a conscious decision. I know exactly what I'm doing. Probably if I played it to like an A&R at a major label, and in fact my own A&R did tell me, why don't you change it to this note? It will be catchier. I was like, nah, that's not the song for that. If you want to do a single, cool. Make every single change to like just have the vehicle be more effective for, you know, who the listener is, right? But for this song I didn't want to do that. And I think it's just about like taking ownership of the bit which I can control, which is the songwriting element, right?
So talking about songwriting, obviously you made an album when you were signed to Atlantic.
I did make an album.
What's the process of making an album? What does that look like?
So I think for any artist, the idea of their first album is both exciting and extremely daunting, because you're like, bloody hell, like an album, that's like really serious, right? This is a big deal. And it is. But equally, it's just a collection of 10 to 12 songs, right, that you like and have some sort of cohesion or no cohesion, depending on like what your creative decision is. I was in a really interesting position when it came around to my first album. So I'd been given this chat about how I needed to be either Bruno Mars or Tom Misch. I decided I want to be Bruno Mars. And so I was like, okay.
Why?
Because I want to reach more people. I want to connect with more people. I'm not concerned about being cool. And so because of that, the type of music I wanted to make was more broad and better in a broad sense, if that makes sense.
Did you get any hate for that? Like around that time?
Yes. I remember I like showcased the album at like a listening party, and there was this one girl who's like, look, I really love the first two EPs, but this stuff's too pop for me. I'm not really vibing with it. And I had to be willing to be like, okay, I get that.
Was there ever a moment where you questioned your decision to go down that route?
Definitely. Because, you know, whatever you do, someone's not going to like it. So it's like, who are you going to let down? / who are you going to try and bring into your circle?
So yeah, making an album.
I had a lot of this, you know, pressure on me to try to make something commercial. And what's really interesting is, and I'm sure if there's any musicians listening to this who are with major labels, or just anyone who, you know, or any label, if you play them a song, sometimes they'll be like, oh yeah, it's a smash, it's big, it's, you know, or this one, I'm not sure it's a single. They'll say things like that. And that's so vague. It's so unbelievably not useful in helping you make something which they are going to be happy with.
Surely they elaborate on that though, right? Or do they not?
You'd think
surely you wouldn't just leave it at like, that's not a single. Next.
No, like, you'd think that they'd be able to as they work in the music industry, and it's unbelievable how on your own you actually are. A lot of A&Rs have the ability to know, that's a hit, but they don't necessarily know how to get there. And that was my experience. I had to figure that out by myself. And that took ages. It took an absolute age.
How many songs did you make? So how many songs were on the album again?
The first album was 10 songs.
And how many songs did you make for the album?
Probably 150.
Fuck off.
I'm serious.
Wow, seriously?
Yeah.
You're not serious.
I'm serious, yeah.
You made 150 songs?
Minimum. It could be 200, 300. I
but
wrote
is that like,
so many songs.
But is that like, when you say, are you talking about like you wrote a chorus?
Nah, full song.
Full song.
Get out.
Yeah. I've written so many songs.
Zach, you wrote 150 songs?
Yeah.
And 10 made it on the album?
Correct.
That's okay, how do you... I mean, I know that artists typically will, you know, they have to whittle songs down.
Yeah.
How the fuck do you whittle down 150 songs to 10?
Well, the album was called Only When We're Naked. And so for me, that was about being naked, being vulnerable. And so I chose the 10 songs that were most vulnerable to me. And ended up with those 10 songs. But yeah, it was also an interesting time because I'd spent so long writing those 150 to 200 songs, and each time the record label was like spending money like on the studio costs, also for all the time that it takes to make an album. They have to pay their staff, you know, so you need to be generating income, right? And I wasn't, because that wasn't my concern when I first started. I had to realize that as I went on, you know, artists like Amy Winehouse, artists like Adele, artists like Paolo Nutini, that was the kind of reach that I wanted. I wanted to be that type of artist, right? And so it's like okay, how do you do that now? Because back then when they were releasing their first albums, the sound of pop music was basically anything that Egg White or Mark Ronson produced. It was that kind of live sound, and you know, you had live bands. It was mixed in a certain way, but that wasn't the sound of pop when I was making my album. And so I was like, okay, what's the sound of pop? Like, what are the things that Radio 1 are playing in this country? So I was like, okay, let me analyze this. So people from, you know, wherever they were in the world, when they put their singles out, the beat was... So I was like, okay, well, that's easy. I can do that. They also had lots of compression on their vocal. And so I was like, yeah, well, I can do that as well. A lot of the songs, you know, they had a really catchy chorus, and they had a catchy pre-chorus and a catchy verse. So I was like, wow, okay, you need to be really ruthless with it in terms of like making sure there's no, you know, you're trimming all the fat on a song. And I just gave myself the task of completely forgetting everything I'd known about songwriting and who I thought I was as Zak Abel. And and just tried something new. I was like, okay, I've kind of come this far and made these types of songs, made 200 songs. The label don't like any of them, and they don't want to release them.
They have the final decision on that.
Yeah, they had the final decision. Yeah. I mean, they can't release anything without my permission, but I couldn't release anything without theirs.
Yeah. Cool.
And yeah, so I just kind of threw it all open. I forgot to say, my label, just before I started the album, said it would be cheaper for them to let me finish the album and put it out than it would be for them to drop me.
Okay.
And
jeez.
And at the same time, I had about 3 months worth of rent money, and I was going deaf.
You were going deaf?
Yeah, I was going to touch on that.
So I was just in a crazy spot where I was like, I don't even know firstly if I'm going to be able to make music at this point going forward. And I've got no money. And I'm not the type of artist that I want to be right now. I want to reach more people and have the type of career that the people that I've idolized have. So I literally had to just go back to basics, completely let go of this idea of who I thought I was, and have this fuck it, like I've got nothing to lose attitude. Also, good friend of mine, Tom Duval.
Shout out Tom.
He was an amazing influence on me during that time. He was just, I was really down about losing my hearing, and he's like, okay, what can you do? Like, what do you have control of? Okay, maybe you won't be able to make music forever, but while you still can, what's the attitudes you can have in that moment? So that really helped. I was like, okay, cool. I'm gonna rock up on time to my writing sessions. I'm just gonna really try my best with like writing these songs, which I feel like, are saying what I want to say. The lyrics are important to me, but the vehicle that I'm gonna get them to people in will be more in line with what they're used to hearing and want to hear right now on a broad scale all over the world. So yeah, I gave myself that task. Tom was super chill. He was like, look, you should live with me. Like, I'm going to move out, and you should, come live with me. And I want to live in this area. And I'm like, whoa, that's like central London. I don't think I can afford that. And he's like, okay, what can you afford? So I was like, okay, this is how much I can afford. He's like, okay, cool. Pay that. I'll pay the rest. And like, that was so helpful to me, because it was like, okay, I've got like 4 months here, right?
That's a proper friend.
Tom is a great guy. Shout out to Tom.
Yeah, that's a proper friend.
So I was like, okay, I've got about 4 months here before I run out of money. and I have to move out.
Because that's also interesting, because I think, again, and I didn't even know this until years later when we spoke about it, but a lot of people don't realize that they think you've signed a record deal and you're worth like fucking $500,000 at 20 years old or so. It's not how it works.
No.
Like, money was still a thing for you.
Yeah, when I was, fuck it, I'll just say it. So when I was 17, 18, I signed this record deal. It was £50,000, right? Obviously, you pay your legal fees, which were, I don't know, $5 grand, $8 grand, something like that.
Yeah.
Then you pay your management 20% of that. So that's like another $8 grand.
Are you paying tax on this as well?
Oh yeah. So what's that? 16. So like you're left with like 34k, and then that has to last you from the time, and that was for the album, right? I released 2 EPs before the album came out, so those don't count. So from 17 to 21, I got paid £35,000. So 4 years of income, working every single day. What's 35 divided by 4? Like, I get like
9 grand.
Yeah, 9 grand a year I was making in that time. And yeah, so I was broke.
Can I ask what the diagnosis was with relation to you going deaf?
So I've got otosclerosis, which is the same thing that Beethoven had and Frankie Valli. It's essentially it's when the stapes bone gets overgrown and brittle and can't vibrate properly. So it's a progressive hearing loss. I had it in my right ear. I basically lost maybe 60% of my hearing, and it probably would have just carried on going down. When I was 21, I had an operation on it, which I thought was gonna sort out all my problems, and actually it just fucked me up.
In what way?
So they say you can normally go back to work after like 4 weeks after the operation. I had like stuffing in my ear for like 6 weeks, so I couldn't go back to work as a singer because you got stuffing in your ear, you can't hear anything. Take it out after 6 weeks, and I can't tell if I'm in tune or not. I can't hear pitch, and so I'm singing out of tune, can't tell where I'm at, and I'm supposed to be recording an album. They've given me that it's cheaper to let you finish the album than to drop you spiel, and I just felt so much pressure on me. I got tinnitus 24/7 from it.
Was it a case of you literally just woke up one morning and the hearing was gone in one ear?
No, I think it happens really gradually. So I was like sleeping on one side of the pillow, and there was roadworks outside where I was living, and I noticed that if I slept on one side I could hear it, and if I slept on the other I couldn't. I was like, what the hell's going on? Like, have I got like earwax? And it wasn't. It was otosclerosis in both my ears.
I know this was like a really, really sort of huge thing in your life, and I know that it really quite badly affected your mental health. And I wondered if you could maybe touch on that.
Yeah, so I was just at a point where like I had, as we discussed, no money, no qualifications because I dropped out of school. I'd stopped table tennis, so I wasn't going to be a table tennis player, and now I can't hear anything. And what I then can hear after the operation is it's just messed up. I couldn't tell if I was in tune, and also any like really loud noise was super painful. So whereas before I'd be on stage like singing my ass off with loud music, I then couldn't do that because it was so painful. And I'm just like, what the hell am I doing? Like, what am I supposed to do here? And also because of that, I was really down and anxious about my future and depressed that I had to deal with this hearing stuff. I thought I was going mad. I was so unbelievably anxious all the time, and I was just kind of at the end of my tether. But yeah, a few amazing things happened. One was Tom being there for me and being supported throughout that time. The second thing was I reached out to my old table tennis coach, and I was like, I'm really, really struggling. Like, I want to be successful, but all these things are kind of standing in my way. And he's like, who's in control of those things? Like, who's in control? I was like, well, I am. He's like, can anyone do anything about it? I was like, no. He's like, okay, so you're in control, right? I'm like, yeah. He's like, okay, you say you want to be successful. What does that mean? Like, what do you mean by that? I was like, well, I probably want like I don't know, I want to win a Grammy for an album. He's like, okay, how do you do that? I was like, oh, well, okay, I probably need to have like a #1 single or something to have a Grammy. This is what I thought at the time. So, and he's like, okay, how do you do that? So I'm like, well, it probably needs to be played on Radio 1 and stream well. So I'm like, okay, how do you do that? So I'm like, oh, well, maybe I need to be working with the producers who are getting the songs on Radio 1. He's like, okay, who are they? So I was like, okay, well, let me do some research. Okay, I found a few people, and they seem to be kind of doing that sound. It's like, okay, what are they playing on Radio 1? So I like listened to all the songs, and it's like, what have they got in common? It's like, okay, yeah, they're all like and there's some like auto tune on them as well. And I was like, this is actually great because I can't fucking sing in tune right now because my ears fucked. So, and the lyrics are meaningful. The song's about something, but it's broad. Anyone can understand it. So okay. And what about their social media? Well, all these people who seem to have like success in the music industry, they're doing well on social media. They have a presence. Back then, I wasn't really posting. He's like, okay, well, what are they doing on social media? So I was like, oh, well, they're posting about them in the studio, them on tour, things that are going on in their lives. So I'm like, okay, I could do that. And when are they posting? So I'd be like, oh, normally around 6 p.m. That seems to be when their followers are online. I'm like, okay, maybe I could do that. And then suddenly from this like angst that I was feeling of I want to be successful, but I'm also really struggling and like I think I'm going mad, and it became something that I could do about that feeling, and a few few habits that I could, do instead, and that was amazing. It turned this angst that I was feeling of there's this thing which I want, which is completely out of my control. I think I'm going mad. I think I'm losing my hearing. I'm losing my mind. To okay, there's something I can do about that, and that was massive.
Your brand new album is out.
It is,
and the reason I bring that up now is because it's called Love Over Fear,
mm-hmm.
and I think that's quite relevant to what you were just talking about.
Yeah. 100%.
Why is it called Love Over Fear?
Because it's kind of been a mantra that I've had since all of that was happening. There are so many fears that we all experience in our lives, and they stop us from doing things that we love. They hold us back from pursuing our dreams. It sounds so cheesy, but it's true. Like, I was scared that I was going to lose my hearing, that I was just going to be depressed and anxious for the rest of my life, and it almost stopped me from pursuing what I loved. And luckily, I had people around me who encouraged me and supported me through that difficult time, to the point when I now can just do what I love and have the confidence to do that. I think it's also about self-love over the fears that we all feel about ourselves. There's a song on the album called Winging It, for example, which is all about how when you're younger and you have all these insecurities and doubts and fears, and you see these adults who seem to have their shit together, you kind of hope that when I become an adult, I'll have my shit together. Yeah. And then as you become an adult, you realize no one's got any.
Everyone's
winning.
It's true.
No one knows what they're doing.
Yeah.
And yeah, so it's about loving yourself and realizing that everything is going to be okay. You are in control, and it's quite a liberating feeling knowing that no one knows what they're doing. There's a lot of themes of kind of resilience as well, to kind of bounce back to doing what you love when you have difficult times, and not giving into the fear that it's not going to work out for me. There's a song called Let Me Sing which kind of talks about that, which again, it's the first time I've spoken about anything to do with my hearing in music before. I've always kind of been too afraid to speak out about that, and also I was encouraged not to speak out about it when it was going on, because we were scared that it would frighten the label, and they would then drop me. And so it's about my experience with hearing loss, and how I was scared that I wasn't going to be able to sing anymore. And I think just putting it on the album and talking about it is a way of conquering that fear, and focusing on that was a part of what happened at the time, and that's okay.
I don't want to take away too much from what you're saying, but I do think it's important. You've had quite an interesting home life, and I think people should know about it. Can you touch on that for a second?
Yeah. So I grew up just me and my mum. My dad passed away when I was 12. My mum and dad were never really together, and I have a very, very close relationship with my mum. She's such an inspiration to me. She's got multiple sclerosis and is just an absolute trooper with it.
She's awesome.
Yeah, she never lets it hold her back. And
your mum is one of the most positive people I've met.
Yeah,
like no matter what she's going through, every single time I see her, she's always just like so friendly and happy, and it's amazing, man.
Yeah, thanks for saying that.
It's true. It's true. I wanted to touch on how money works in the music industry, because I think a lot of people don't know, and I think it's quite complicated, and I feel like I'm fairly well versed in the music industry, and even I still get confused by it. So I think it would be really beneficial for people, things like publishing and tour and masters and all that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so if you sign to a major label and you take an advance, that advance is most likely going to be the only time you get paid from the masters like the income from masters.
And do you want to explain what masters are?
So there's basically two types of revenue when it comes to a piece of music. There's the master recording. So that is literally, the thing that you hear on Spotify, or Apple Music, or Deezer, or Amazon. I love you all equally. Thanks for playing my music. And yeah, it's the recording. And then the publishing is the songwriting. So a way I normally explain it is like, if I cover The Way You Make Me Feel by Michael Jackson, I'll own the master.
Okay.
And Michael Jackson, his estate, will own the publishing. If Michael Jackson covers my song Unstable, I should have picked someone who's alive.
Hypothetically
I hadn't said Gorgon City in the beginning. I knew it.
Yeah.
If you cover my song Unstable,
Yeah.
you own the master, but I own the publishing.
Yeah.
Right? So those are two different types of income streams. If I sign a record deal...
Sorry to interrupt there. I was going to say, is the income stream the same on both sides then? So would you get paid an equal amount if you own the master or the publishing?
No.
Okay.
So the way you get paid on the master side is if the song is used on a streaming platform. If someone buys the record from like iTunes or a shop. If it's used in an advert, normally it's 50-50. So that is the only time pretty much when it's equal. If you write the song, you get paid from if the song is on radio. Again, if it's on an advert, that's the 50-50 thing. And you get maybe like 15% of what the master owner would get if it was on Spotify, for example. So there's a big disparity between what the master owner gets on a streaming platform and what whoever owns a publishing would get on a streaming platform. And there's so many debates happening around that actually, because so many songwriters aren't able to have a decent living in the same way they used to be because of how the streaming platforms divvy up where the money goes.
I want to reel off a few kind of quick fire questions and kind of
Sure.
get your thoughts or opinions on a few of these things.
Mm-hmm.
How does someone know when they're ready for management?
I've had a manager from the very beginning, and it's been I think it's been really useful.
You don't have the same manager now, do you?
No, this is my third manager. I think it's really, really important to have someone who shares your goal along for the journey with you, because there's two different types of headspaces. One is the creative headspace and one is the business headspace. Both are really, really important. Both rely on each other. They can't exist. Well, they can, but it's not good if they exist separately. I've been able to be creative in the studio because someone who's responsible has set up the studio session and thought about that proactively. And I've been able to pay rent because someone has structured a deal on the music in such a way that I can earn a decent living off it. It's really important to have a manager. I would just say, make sure you have a rough idea of what you'd like to do, to have a goal in mind, and make sure you're aligned with your goals.
Well, that kind of answered my next question, which was going to be kind of what to look for in a manager if someone's looking at getting one. But I think that's kind of a good...
I think a general rule for what to look for in a manager, and that will be the same in any business, is if you want them to do something, ideally find someone who's done that thing before. And if they haven't, they need to have a really clear vision of what it is they're trying to do.
Yeah.
Or pick someone who's so smart, who asks all the right questions, that they'll pick it up so quickly.
If someone's not signed to a record label, and maybe they're not a singer at all, maybe they're just a songwriter, but for whatever reason they think they're a really, really good songwriter, how do they write for other artists? How do they get in the room with other artists if they don't have that connection?
Well, you need to have some sort of connection. So whether that's you going to like an open mic and writing with people that you've met there, or for me it was great that that was the benefit of having management, is that they knew people who were working at these publishing companies who will set me up with writers. To be honest, so much of the music industry it's a people industry. So ideally you want someone who has some contacts. It's kind of essential, actually.
How does it feel to perform in front of 50,000 people? And is that the most people you've ever performed in front of?
No, the most people I've ever performed in front of live was 70,000. That was in Chicago. But then the most people I've ever performed in front of in terms of like TV stuff was maybe 14 million.
And was that
That was the King's Coronation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, for anyone that didn't know, you played the King's Coronation, that was my next question. So
Right.
what was that like?
It was pretty awesome. Yeah.
How did that come about?
I was sat on the sofa watching Desperate Housewives in my boxers, and I get this call from my manager saying Freya Riding's pulled out of, this coronation thing. Do you want to do it? And I was like, yeah, all right. And this was 3 days before the concert. So,
Oh, wow. Okay.
So I just learnt the song.
I was going to say, because you didn't know the song,
Yeah, I
did you?
didn't know the song. So I just learnt the song as quickly as possible, and went straight to rehearsals that same day.
Good and bad record deals. Thoughts? How to avoid, what to look for?
If you're signing to a major, assume that the advance is the last bit of money you'll ever get for that album, because they're structured in a way where it's so unlikely that you will recoup,
yeah.
right? If you want to sign to a major, assume that the person you're working with may not be there in 6 months to a year. So be okay with that. That happened to me. Like I was in a record deal and everyone got fired, and then you're kind of left with no one. Think about exactly what components of a record label you need and what you're willing to give up for that. I think always think bigger picture, because there's so many ways in which having someone who believes in you and is investing in you will benefit so many other areas of your business, whether that's live or publishing or merch. Just try and think bigger picture and think about what you want to achieve.
Lastly, I wanted to touch on your craziest tour story, because that's the stuff that always fascinates me about like people going on tour and things like that. Like, what's the weirdest or wildest thing that's happened to you on tour?
I proposed to my girlfriend on stage at a show. That was pretty.
That's pretty wild.
That's pretty wild. Yeah,
I cried.
You cried.
I was there, but I was like,
I didn't know you cried.
I did. But you know what's funny?
It doesn't make you less of a man. You know that, right?
I know that.
Yeah.
Thanks for saying it, though.
Of course.
No, what's funny is you were really pushy that I have to be there for that gig. So initially, that was what was really funny about it.
Yeah.
Before you go into that actual story,
Yeah.
Zach called me and was like, he was like, oh, dude, I'm doing a show at Coco on this day. Like, do you want to come? And I was like, yeah, of course, man. I'll be there. And then he was like, cool. And then close to the time, he was like,
You're coming, right?
yeah, you're definitely coming. And I was like, yeah, I should be, man. Like, I think so. And then I think I was like, oh, I might be able to make it. He's like, it would be good if you could make it. And he kept framing it as like, I haven't played Coco in ages. It's such an important venue, which was all true. And I was like, all right, fine. So I went with my mate who didn't know Zach.
Yeah.
And then we're just up there. And then like it happened
Yeah.
at the like near the end of the show, right before he did an encore. And I was like, oh my God. And I'm like screaming and I'm filming it. And like, I've got a video to this day
to see it.
on my phone of you on stage. And I'm going, oh my God. Oh, I'm just
Sick.
But yeah.
Sick.
Imagine if I'd have been like, it's not that big of a deal, man. I'll catch the next one. You're like, I really think you should come to this.
Yeah.
So yeah, dude, talk about that. I mean, that's insane.
Yeah, just I've been with her for a very long time, and I knew it was probably going to happen at some point. I was like, you know what? Why not do it in front of 1,500 people?
Yeah.
She said she doesn't want to, if it did happen, she wouldn't want anything public. So I was like, right, okay. Why don't I just do the opposite? And so I proposed on stage, and she said yes. So
Nice.
That was good. Yeah.
So that's the craziest thing that's happened to you on tour that like you've done.
Yeah.
Have there been any like, I don't know, crazy fan things from tour?
One of my favorite moments from the last tour I did was in Bristol, and there was this woman from the crowd, and she challenged me to a dance off while I was on stage, and I don't know what it was in me that was like that thought I should do it, but I was like, yeah, all right, cool.
Yeah.
So I invited her on stage, and we had 3 rounds. One round was I think the worm. She started with the worm and absolutely smashed it. I think she then went on to the robot, and then there was a kind of like Running Man thing that she did afterwards, and she just smashed it. She destroyed me in the dance off. She won. She was victorious.
Okay.
And I don't remember what her name was, but if she's watching this, I want to send you lots and lots of love. Well done for winning the contest. But yeah, for the tour I'm about to go on, I'm going to do that again. There's a tune I did called Dance With You, which I actually made with Tom Misch, and I think it could be the dance-off song.
You're going to pick a random person on the audience.
So yeah,
okay.
yeah, I'd like them to volunteer.
Okay,
ideally.
You dance.
I think I'll just pick someone who's volunteered to do a dance off, and I think it could be a really fun part of the show.
So if someone comes to see Zak Abel on tour, you're going to do a dance off with someone at each show.
Yeah. And they'll probably win as well.
Dude, that is insane. When are you going on tour?
It's from the 29th of October to the 3rd of December.
And where are you playing?
All across the UK and pretty much all across Europe as well, apart from a few places.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's still tickets if you guys want to come. You guys don't get free tickets just because we're friends.
Yeah, I wouldn't expect that.
We're running a business here.
Business head.
I've learned that ground floor podcast, right? It's a business thing. No.
Well, guys, you heard it here first. If you want to watch him do a dance off on stage at literally every single show on tour, go grab tickets to his tour.
Thanks for the plug, man.
No worries. I'm gonna pay just to see that.
Please do.
Dude, thank you so much for coming here, man.
Before we wrap up, I wanted to ask you actually. I mean, just what would be? Let's say someone's listening to this that has an aspiration of being a singer.
I was literally
No, not the practical advice.
Oh,
no, not about practical advice. Okay, no, the practical side. I mean, yeah, we'll kind of go into that.
Yeah.
But more just more generally, like what can they be doing to help them break into that world? Not just one piece of practical advice, but in a world at the moment where everything's so saturated and oversaturated, how can someone really break into it?
Saturate it some more.
Okay,
it's the only option you have.
What do you mean by that exactly?
So the temptation when you see loads of people being like, "Hi, I'm doing my thing," and on TikTok, it's to be like, "Oh, I'm above that." You're not. I'm not. No one is. That is where people's attention is. Everyone's on their phone and they're consuming content all the time, and I think that's the direction that everything's going to go. So I guess okay, you love making music, but also ideally you want to make music and involve other people in it. So it's like, okay, where is their attention, and how can you entertain them / connect with them in a medium that they want to connect with other people. So whether that is putting covers out on TikTok or Instagram, or doing things that are fun, like going out onto the street and singing people's songs, whatever that looks like to you, just go for it. Saturate it some more.
Good piece of advice.
Dude, this has been awesome, man. I've been wanting this to happen for such a long time. Final question we ask all the guests on the show. Normally it's for people that are starting a business, but in this case I'll tweak it. But we basically say, obviously the theme of the show is practical advice, so we literally ask people exactly how they did it. And so on this note, to anyone who is looking to become a musician or get into that world, if you could give them one piece of practical, actionable advice, not like believe in yourself and all that kind of stuff, like something that they can actually use, what would you say?
Put out music that you like and collaborate as much as possible, and start a relationship with you and your fans, the people that are responsible for your success or demise. It's super important. That is everything. You make music to connect with yourself and other people, and so just get started on that. If you want to do it independently, it will be the thing which allows you to have a business. If you want it to do it with a major label or any other label, it's a thing that they're going to be looking at when they're thinking, do I want to work with this person? So yeah, that's the most important thing.
That's a really great piece of advice, man. Dude, this has been such a long time coming. It means so much to me that you're here, and I'm going to pay you a compliment, because there have been a lot of times in my life, a number of times, where I've been going through some stuff, and you've been one of the like most vocal voices.
Thanks,
and
man.
you've said things like, I can see it happening. You just got to keep going and keep pushing, and you've been so supportive. And so to you are genuinely one of the most sincere and authentic and loyal friends anyone could ask for.
Thanks, man.
And you're genuinely so hardworking, and you are so talented, obviously. But I'm so proud of everything you're doing, man. And I wish you nothing but success, and you deserve every bit of it.
Thank you, dude. That's very, very kind.
I mean,
same applies to you.
Love you, brother.
Love you too, man.
Guys, amazing episode. Breakdown of the music industry. Give a chance to plug. Say whatever you want in the camera. Where can people find you? Album, whatever you want.
So my name...
Done the sloppy stuff.
Now down to business, baby.
Business!
Business!
My name is Zak Abel. Zakabel. Singer-songwriter from London. 28 years old. You can find me on Insta, TikTok.
Sounds like they can find you on LinkedIn.
You can find me on LinkedIn. You know what? I've never ever been on LinkedIn.
Have you not?
No, I do not have an
You're
account.
lucky.
I've never even found anyone there.
That's why he's so happy.
Yeah, it probably is. I'm going on tour. The dates that we said.
Those ones.
Those ones.
We'll put the dates on the screen below.
Okay, here are my tour dates. Please enjoy.
And your album is out on Friday.
Album's out on Friday, and
the album's called...
Love Over Fear. This guy is so useful. It's really prompting me. And guys, if you're watching this on my Insta, say I post this clip. This is so weird talking about the future. Check these guys out for more of their amazing content, more of their amazing podcasts and interviews. And if you want to learn something about anything, you never know. They may have had someone who's talking about that exact thing.
What a plug.
What a plug. We've never had someone plug the podcast ever. And
that convincingly as well.
I know. That's amazing. Shout out Zach. Shout out Skeethy. Shout out producer Barney. Guys, amazing episode. Please do subscribe. Turn on post notifications. And like the video. And comment, because we'll be in the comments. We'll be everywhere. Review it. Rate it. You know the drill. Zach, thank you so much for being here, man. It's been amazing.
Share it. Share it with your friends. With your grandma. With your grandpa. With your dog. Share it.
Okay, we're signing off now.
Signing off.
See you in the next one.